So yesterday we were all over the map. We talked about these critical updates that were here, there, and everywhere. Today I want to focus only on Russian state media and the story that's being told in Russian state media. And you'll understand things from a very different perspective by the time that we're done. Okay, so I want to start here with TASS. I generally look at either TASS, RT, or Pravda, and we're going to spend most of our time with RT, even though I'm going to start with TASS, and we'll talk about the Moscow Times at the end. Russian forces eliminate over 95 Ukrainian troops in Nikolaev Kryvyi Rog area, says top brass. So this is the article. You see the kinds of articles that are in Russian state media, always glorifying Russia, always showing how awesome they are, how they're succeeding. Whether they're succeeding or not is irrelevant. So here's the article. Russian artillery and combat aircraft eliminated over 95 Ukrainian troops and 10 armored vehicles in this area. Okay, so what we know, and here's this big rocket going off, and okay, so now the Ukrainians do this too to some degree, where they tend to show more of their victories than defeats. Every once in a while they'll see like, yeah, we had to withdraw, we had to move back, or we had to whatever. But this is why you triangulate. You don't just read one side. Even with the Ukrainians, you don't just read one side. You try to read Ukrainian press, then you try to read British, American, German, whatever else. You try to triangulate on other perspectives, especially with the free press. You can do this. Now with the Russians, it's not free press. TASS is a Russian news agency, so they have an angle, and they're going to get in trouble if they don't give the proper angle. You're going to get up to 15 years in jail if you don't actually, or if you speak against the Russian military. So that's a problem. But they'll also have articles like this. And this is a perennial favorite. The U.S. Congresswoman vows no more funding for Ukraine. Okay, they absolutely love her. She's a Republican, a very conservative Republican, but she's also kind of a isolationist type that, well, why are we spending this money on Ukraine? We should be focused on, and there are legitimately other issues that I agree we ought to be focusing on these other issues, like whatever's going on in the border, or whatever's going on with some school boards doing stupid stuff, or whatever it is, okay? But she says if Republicans win back Congress next week's midterm elections, not another penny will go to Ukraine. Okay, the Russians absolutely love this. She's in la-la land. Even if the Republicans take back the House, and they're going to take back the House, and they take back the Senate, I don't think a lot is going to actually shift. But the Russians love playing up this narrative, and RT is also state-sponsored media from the Russian government. Okay, now RT will also run articles like this, and this was just yesterday. Voters expect Republicans to impeach Biden, says a poll, and they go to a Rasmussen poll, and it showed that 54% of likely voters believe a Republican-controlled House of Representatives would likely impeach Biden. Well, there's bad blood between Republicans and Democrats. Republicans feel that when Trump was impeached, both times it was politically motivated, and it was not for substantial enough reason to use impeachment. And, you know, at the time they're saying, just wait till the control shifts to the other side. However, Biden's in a different circumstance. Biden's right now I'm a Republican. I don't particularly like Biden, okay? He's not my guy. He's done a good job, well, mostly good job, trying to support Ukraine. I don't know why he won't give the long-range rockets that he ought to be giving, but he's not my guy, but he also has Kamala Harris as a vice president. So I think a lot of Republicans don't want Biden to actually be impeached and have a Kamala Harris presidency either. So they're kind of mixed with that. Remember, President Trump was impeached twice by Democrats. And again, from a Republican perspective, they just don't want to see Biden impeached in order to get Kamala, but they still are pretty angry at the Democrats for using what they feel is like less than the standard that meets up for whatever that is. Now, Democrats feel differently, and that's okay. Now, what I don't like is when I see this in RT. Okay, this was about a couple weeks ago, 18 October, Biden slammed for latest baffling gas price comment. And so when I see Russian media, and I watch a lot of Russian media, particularly RT, when I see them slamming my president, when I'm perfectly fine with seeing Fox News do the same thing, right? Here, Biden torch for claiming gas was $5 when he took office, which is not true. But nonetheless, I don't mind at all when Fox News is doing that. That's a very different thing. This is within the family, right? Within the United States, we don't like Democrats. Democrats don't like us. It's okay. That's all right. That's the way that our democracy works. But I really don't like when I see RT do it. Now, the principle is simple. It's kind of like this. I could say, I hate my sister. And Cher, if you're watching this, I don't hate you. This is just an example. My sister sometimes watches, so I'm just clarifying. Okay. I could say, I hate my sister. I hate my sister. I hate my sister. And I don't, just for clarification, Cher. Okay. So I could say that all day long. But if the kid down the street says, I hate your sister, whoa, wait a minute. I mean, then fighting words, right? Because I'm going to stick up for my sister as much as I just complained about my... So it's the same thing here. When Fox News says it, it's one thing. And same thing if it was reversed and it was CNN talking about Trump. When CNN would talk about Trump, it would be one thing. But if RT was saying it, it would be different. So, yeah, I really don't like seeing this kind of thing in Russian news. But they're always trying to bring Biden down because, again, if you can bring Biden down, you can splinter him off from the coalition. That's a big win for Russia. Okay, same kind of thing here. Russian narrative gaining traction in Germany, says a study. The number of Germans who agree with Russia's position on the root causes of the Ukraine conflict has risen over the past several months, a recently published study reveals. Okay, and so they're talking about the study. According to the report, 19% of the respondents agree with the statement that Russia had no choice but to attack Ukraine in response to NATO provocations, whereas in April the figures were just at 12 and 17% respectively. Okay, so what it's saying is that more Germans are seeing the Russian point of view or perspective or propaganda, and so they're making headway with that. Again, if you could split a major country out of NATO like Germany away from the coalition, that could really hurt because the unanimity, the solidarity that the West is standing with Ukraine, Putin never expected, and it's really throwing his plans into a tailspin. He never expected it to go this way. So this kind of thing is perennial favorite in RT. And this is not only what they're projecting. Somebody used this term yesterday in a comment. They said, hey, this is mirroring or projecting. So thank you, whoever said that. I forget who it was. But they said, yeah, what the Russian, I often say, what the Russians do, what the Russians are about to do, they say their enemies are about to do. And he said it's mirroring. Projecting is another term that's similar. It's like a Freudian term. Okay, so yeah, with this, they're trying to project this image, this narrative, and if they can get it to stick, great. And so there's kind of 2 or 3 things going on simultaneously. One, they're saying it and it's being heard by Russians. 2, they're saying it and it's being copied and pasted almost wholesale in some other articles in Asian, African, not European so much, Asian, African, and Middle Eastern press. You'll see, I've highlighted the whole article before sometimes, and then I look at it over in Google and I see the multiple versions of this just being copied and pasted. And they're cool with that because they want to spread their narrative. And then they're really, if they can get this to happen, they split the coalition, they actually are much stronger. So if you can split the coalition that's supporting Ukraine, Ukraine's in trouble. Okay, and they know it. Putin names a priority for the frontline region. Again, it's always Putin's the strong, he's got this idea, he's got the perspective. Relocating civilians from the southern city of Kherson is a top priority, says President Vladimir Putin. Now, this is part of what else is going on with the Russians are withdrawing from Kherson, and we don't know yet whether this is a legit withdrawal or whether they're setting some kind of trap or whatever. So the Ukrainians are being somewhat cautious. But again, Putin is always right. He's always a strong man. He's never wrong. Somebody else is always to blame in Russian media. So it's someone like the military, the generals were at fault, even if Putin had control of it, or with the mobilization. The people who were mobilizing, they did a bad job, but Putin wasn't to blame. He never is. And that's the way that this always works. Okay, one more article, the Russian narrative. Oh, we already talked about that one. So let's go on and we'll talk about this. President of Russia, this is the president's official website. So federal law on amending Articles 7.292 and 19.61. And I thought this was interesting. I read this kind of nerdy stuff just to see, like I pan through this just to see if there's anything there. So the law establishes that the refusal or evasion of a supplier, performer, or contractor from concluding a state contract for state defense carries administrative liability if these actions do not already contain a criminally punishable act. That means that it's almost like nationalizing, where any industry, we ask you to produce this. If you don't do it, if you refuse to do it, now you have a penalty. Why are they doing it? Because they have to figure out how to mobilize not only people, but resources to be able to provide for their ammunition and other materials for war. And that they're doing this shows that they have a real problem in their supply lines, let alone all the other things that we know about the problems in their supply lines. Okay, so sometimes you might wonder, why do I not show the Moscow Times very often? So I triangulate on different media. The Moscow Times is independent, and they're actually a pretty reasonable source, but I've already gotten the same material generally from The Guardian or Radio Free Europe or Reuters or AP or whatever else before I've gotten to this. You'll see that Jake Bro will draw on Moscow Times very often, but it's not Russian state media. It's different. It's independent. And so they have to kind of thread the needle carefully, but they're a lot more accurate about reality. Whereas when I have fun with Russian state media, I'm usually drawing on, say, RT or TASS, or sometimes Pravda. Okay, so that's what's going on here. And I hope that helps you understand the picture, because again, there is a hot war where people are dying. There's a political war which is holding the alliance together so that the hot war can continue. Then there's an informational war which is trying to split that alliance apart. And so all these things, and an economic war with sanctions and the way that we operate, so that we're trying to prevent them from being able to arm themselves through those sanctions. So all these things are happening simultaneously, and you need to understand how the Russian media is portraying itself, which is why I argue, please go look at RT. You can, if you have Rumble on like a Roku or something, you can find RT through there. RT was unfortunately banned in some places. Like you can't get it in certain media, but I would urge you to look at RT and Pravda and those things. And I know some people say, they have to be canceled. No, don't cancel them. Read them so that you can understand what's actually going on. All right, that's all that I have to say today. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.